Hi, my name is Christopher Meyer, and this video is about overcoming divorce pain. Simple mind tricks and brain hacks to help you overcome different types of trauma. The emphasis in this video will be placed on divorces. Now, there are other types of trauma people can experience, bad breakups, post-traumatic stress disorder, sexual trauma. There's all types of trauma out there, but I'm talking about a very specific type of trauma. But I think there are the proper parts in my theory that can also be applied to other types of trauma. So, again, my name is Christopher Meyer. I'm a family law attorney for the greater Houston area. I practice mostly in the areas of domestic violence, divorce, and custody. And so I'm not a licensed therapist, but I do practice family law, and I do see a lot of patterns in my cases, and that's what I want to talk to you about. And I think that I can explain the causes of this, I guess, trauma, and how we can or brain hacks, if you will, coping mechanisms to help us overcome this specific type of trauma. If you have not already, I ask you to please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll leave a link down to my website in the comments. There's a contact form on my website. You can message me that way if you have any specific questions. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of take off my attorney hat for a minute and just enjoy this walk to clear my head and talk about coping mechanisms to overcome trauma, with an emphasis in the area of divorce. There was a famous quote: "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." That is a quote from the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights activist in the United States, a powerful speaker and bringer of change. I like this quote because it is more or less the thesis or the caveat for this entire video. Imagine for a moment there are two objects sitting on a table. One object represents the light. The other object represents darkness. The darkness, that is everything that's wrong, everything that's bad. That is the confusion we feel when we've been through some type of traumatic event. That is the pain. That is the internalizing your ex's opinions. That is the regret, shame. That is the double guessing and a self-doubt, or the second guessing of ourselves and self-doubt. That is the darkness. It is a very sad place, a place we don't want to be, and unfortunately it is a place we tend to find ourselves sometimes when we have experienced trauma. Okay, the other object on the table is light. This represents happiness, fulfillment, clarity, confidence, joy, the celebration we feel inside of ourselves, the area where we want to be, fulfillment. Now, if you have experienced trauma and you're still dealing with all these subconscious thoughts that keep you feeling bad, then I'm going to argue and say you're in the darkness. You're inside the dark object. And unfortunately, to push you out of that object and into the light, I can't use more darkness. No amount of this dark energy is going to give you the push you need to pull you into this light, or push you into this light rather. So how do we go from this darkness to this place of light? What you can do is you have to first need have clarity and confidence about the situation. That's the first step in pushing you out of the darkness. So what is let's talk about this darkness for a minute. So you've been through trauma and you feel possibly confusion. Why did my loved one do this horrible thing to me, whether it was physical or emotional or isolated me? The confusion. There's this confusion. Why somebody would hurt you. Now, you can go to my website or my YouTube channel. There's links back to my website. You can look at I have a what's called a power and control wheel. It's a graphic that I posted. Take a look at it. It explains why people hurt other people. And the common denominator between all of these reasons, somebody might want to hurt you, whether it's through isolation, keeping you away from your friends, keeping you away from your family members. It's about power and control, whether it's they're hurting you or raping you, physically or emotionally, financially, whatever, or using the legal system, hiring a lawyer to drain your resources, or to retaliate because of something you did, whether it was the right or wrong thing, that's not relevant. It's all about power and control. So I hope that explains the confusion when you find yourself in this dark place. Something else you might experience is pain. Why would someone hurt you? Someone that you loved, or you thought you loved, or you thought you could trust. Why did they hurt you? I mean, they you let them into your life and they injured you. They caused pain. It's sad. Something else you might experience is internalizing your ex's opinions about you. Your ex said a lot of nasty things, told a lot of people on social media bad things about you, or sent out messages, or messaged you directly, or talked to you, or whatever. But they always told you you're such a bad person. And unfortunately, this got to you, and you start playing this tape in your head, this tape called I'm a Bad Person, playing it on infinite loop. You just can't let go of it. Why? Something else that might happen is guilt. Maybe they led you to feel that you were, for some reason you were to blame you helped facilitate the cause of the breakup of the relationship. And I'm not making excuses for people who are physically violent, but a lot of relationships, there are maybe not physical violence or emotional violence, but they take it out on each other in other ways. Maybe stonewalling, or just being passive, or just not showing that love and respect that you thought you had. And so there's that guilt, making you feel somehow guilty for the breakup. And again, I'm not making excuses for abusers. But I am leading into clarity, which I'll get to later. Okay, so we've got that guilt and that regret. Why did this have to happen? Did I really have to go talk to that family law attorney? Did I really have to do this or that? I made a big issue out of, I put something under a microscope and zoomed in 1,000 times and made a big issue out of something that really wasn't. You have that just regret. Or you left them, but they have a special mental state. They're not the nicest people, but they need somebody to take care of them. So you just feel bad because you left that situation. And then the other thing is the self-doubt. What are some ways we can doubt ourselves after going through trauma? I think a good way we can doubt ourselves is, and you got to be careful with this one, and I don't recommend my clients do it who have been through trauma. But certain spiritual therapists or counselors might disagree with me, whatever. But forgiving the abuser, they physically hurt you. They know they did that. You know it happened. No, not forgiveness. Because remember, if in a way you're making excuses for their behavior, and that leads into self-doubt. That's all. In a way, it's like saying, okay, what you did wasn't that bad. Hurting me wasn't that bad. And you're in a way okay, I understand you physically hurt me, but you have a mental issue, therefore I forgive you. I would say that psychologically that kind of puts you in a place where because in a way you're making excuses for their behavior, in a way you're saying it's okay. No, I don't want that. And then because that's self-doubt, and then leads into second guessing. And that's where you say to yourself, maybe what I did was wrong. And you start playing that tape in your head. I'm a bad person. And you never really ever move on. And also second guessing. And this really concerns me. And I see this. Sometimes people have this secret hope that, okay, we're separated or we're divorced, but I'm not going to move on, and I hope you don't move on either. And I'm going to just have this secret hope that we're going to be back together again. And maybe during the separation, that's when you are quote unquote fixing yourself of all the bad things you were accused of doing, all those negative opinions about you that you went ahead and just internalized, and you're going to kind of meditate on that. Don't meditate on unhealthy things. Meditate on that, and then you decide, you know what, I want to fix myself and win her back. Get her back, or him, whatever. So you do whatever, the opposite of whatever you're accused of doing, because you're trying to fix yourself, right? You have the secret hope. And my friend, you are going to be extra disappointed when they move on, and you obviously haven't. You see your ex when you're dropping off the kids so they can have their weekend with the child or whatever. And at this exchange, your ex brought their new boyfriend or girlfriend. And they're obviously moving on, and not you. And yeah, what can you do? How can you were so disappointed because you had this, you were holding out on the secret hope. It was part of your self-doubt and but mostly your the second guessing of yourself. Why you do this, why you can't move on. So you're going to get back at him. you're going to drag them back in a court over something petty, because you're not going to tolerate that, and you're going to prove that you still have that power and control. Or maybe, you know, back in the day when the relationship wasn't good, they were the ones who had the power and control over you. You got away from that. And yes, I admit the whole thing was traumatic. You have some, you know, trauma. But then because you were, you know, doing the fixing, or the, maybe another way to describe it, not fixing, but just holding out on this secret hope, some romantic notion that things will be better again, and now you find out you're wrong. Yeah, you're gonna be disappointed. And the reason is, well, not just disappointed, it's gonna go back into confusion, which was the first step of this trauma cycle that I walked you into. In other words, other things you can do is call it like a doom loop, subconscious cycle, subconscious doom loop, whatever, because sometimes when people have gone through something that's traumatic to them, and this specifically for this video, I'm talking about divorces, maybe they forgive their ex. You know, their ex cheated on them or whatever, and they weren't happy about it. So, you know, just so they have peace with themselves, they want to go ahead and forgive. And you know what? I mean, I like the fact that they're trying to grow, but again, if we're trying to get out of this trauma cycle, break out of this cycle, vicious cycle we can't get out of, then we need to, let's not forgive them. Let's actually talk about forgiving ourselves. That's where we get into the next part of this video, which is going to be letting go, but not before I talk about clarity. Okay, so before we can really get out of this trauma cycle we're stuck in, where we are confused and we feel pain and we're angry and we're resentful, there's no justice, maybe a little bit of self-doubt, the secret hope that we get back together with the other person, and just not able to move on. And it leads back into the confusion. So before we can really prepare ourselves to step out of this vicious cycle, this infinite tape playing in our head, playing the song, I'm a Bad Person, before we can really get away from that, we need to have clarity. We need to have clarity about the situation. Okay, so let's have some clarity about the trauma. What happened? Where were you when the trauma happened? Where were they? What were your roles and responsibilities in the relationship at the time that the trauma occurred? What was their role and responsibilities? Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want an honest answer. And pause this video if you have to, so you can kind of think about it a little bit. But I want to know, is it possible that alcohol and drugs were a factor at the breakup of the relationship, or the last several months or years before it happened? The reason I ask this is because alcohol is a common denominator in probably about 90% of my cases. Also drugs, and that when I say drugs, I mean legal and illegal drugs. Were these a factor? But for having these illegal drugs or alcohol in the fact pattern, but for the fact that they existed in the relationship, would you not be in the situation that you are today? That's an honest question I want you to ask yourself. I mean, if you just swore off alcohol and drugs and whatnot, would the other little things like get the hell out of debt, would you be in a better position? Is it possible the relationship would not have been stressed out to such a high level that maybe it could have been saved? I don't know. But I think of the relationship as like an ecosystem. And when you introduce bad things into the ecosystem, then you're going to get bad results. I know in the Army we had a saying, we said, poop in, poop out. You don't put in quality ingredients, you're not going to get a quality outcome. Okay, so that's just something I want for clarity purposes. So my next question is confidence. Okay, now that we have a little bit of clarity about the situation, we still feel sad and hurt about it. So we need to have we need to, before we can start really letting go of the trauma, we need to be confident in ourselves first. One thing we can do is admit that we are a good person. We are worthy of love. I don't deserve to be hurt or injured. Nobody has the right to do that to me. And I want to be in healthy relationships. Remember, you are someone who's worthy of love. You are worthy of healthy relationships. You are a good person. You need to have that confidence before you can really go into the next step, that I'm going to talk to you about. And don't just jump to this next step without really thinking and pondering on the subconscious cycle first and the clarity and the confidence. Next thing I want you to do is let go. This is one of the hardest parts. There's another hard part that I'm going to get into, but you have to be willing to let go of the trauma. If you kind of maybe the kind of person who has a perpetual victim mentality, then yeah, you're just never going to be able to let go. You need to rise above that. It's hard. Other people have maybe different ways of doing it. You really need to figure out a way to let go of the trauma. Allow yourself to let go. Maybe letting go is not the issue. The issue is allowing yourself to let go. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about after letting go is forgiveness. Forgiveness is crucial. Never. What I'm talking about is self-forgiveness. If you cannot forgive yourself, or you're too busy forgiving the abuser and too busy making excuses for their behavior, which puts you in a position of self-doubt because maybe leaving the relationship was overkill, so you have that self-doubt and maybe that little bit of that regret. But as long as you can't forgive, if you're too focused on being in the subconscious doom loop, focusing and ruminating and on the pain and the confusion and the internalization of their opinions, if you're too busy doing that and too busy forgiving them and making excuses for their behavior, which is a form of self-doubt, then you're never going to have time to think and have any clarity. Because if they hurt you okay, first of all, there's no reason someone should hurt somebody else, but if you cannot, there's no way to logically construct an argument to justify hurting someone. But if you're always using this bad, flawed logic to make excuses for their behavior, well, they had issues, or they had their own things going on in their own background which justified their behavior, and you allow yourself to make that conclusion based off of just super bad logic, then yes, you will be stuck in that subconscious doom loop, always playing that, tape in your head that you're such a bad person. You need to not make excuses for them. You need to forgive yourself. You are a good person. You are worthy of love. It is time to let go, and finally forgive yourself. I want to leave you with a few things. You're not the person that your ex thinks you are. You and your ex had a relationship that did not turn out the way you prefer. A lot of people have relationships that will turn out not the way that they prefer. That's why people like me have a job, because relationships don't work out. It's unfortunate, but one thing you can do is not constantly remind yourself and just ruminate on that situation. As long as you're constantly thinking of the stressful event or thinking of ways to get back, you're never going to have that peace. You're never going to have that clarity, that confidence, or that happiness and celebration inside of you that wants to jump out. You're never going to experience that until you can acknowledge the trauma cycle, have clarity about the situation. Where were you when this happened? Where were they? Feeling confidence in the fact that you are someone who's worthy of love. And then most importantly, letting go and forgive yourself. Once you do this, you can finally move on and start working on a roadmap to happiness in future relationships. But before you can draft that roadmap, and I can't do it for you, I can just tell you how to get there but you can never arrive at this or be at a place where you can arrive at the roadmap if you never go through these important steps first. Now, once you arrive at this roadmap, you'll create a path to happiness and future relationships. But it's a path to happiness. But that was the interesting thing, is that there really is no destination. Happiness is a journey. It's not a destination. Thank you, and I hope this video helps you overcome divorce pain and possibly other types of trauma. And remember, these are brain hacks and simple mind tricks to overcome pain and finally start using your head to fix your heart. I ask that you please hit the like and subscribe, and also maybe leave a comment or two. I will leave a link to my website down in the comments. You can message me through my website, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. This is Christopher Meyer, family law attorney for Houston, Texas.